Hey y'all, how are you? It's Thursday. As you can see,
Thursday.
we are not in the same place still, but we're making it do what it do. So listen, I bet some of y'all saw that title and you said, why in the world would I want to do that? Why would I want to cultivate confrontation, right? I heard you say, oh no, don't want it, don't want the conflict, don't want the drama. But what if I told you that learning to navigate conflict is one of the biggest keys to unlocking and healing transformation in your life? So if you want to find out more about that, then stick around. This episode is for you. Hi, I'm Pam Williams, a mother.
And I'm Jessica E. Williams, a daughter. And this is a mother and a daughter truthful chat, where we discuss our 35-year multi-layered relationship.
We've been through so many ups and downs. Not only are we family, but we're business partners in the high-stress world of event planning and production for short films.
We've also shared the same therapist for over 10 years. What some people call codependence, we call collaboration.
So join us as we share stories from our lives,
have candid conversations with other mother-daughter duos,
and shed light on the roller coaster ride of being a woman while raising a woman.
All right, y'all. You know what time it is. Glass is up.
Yes, ma'am.
Like,
what are you drinking?
What are you drinking? I'm drinking Rise green tea. Shout out to them. We will take sponsorship. You know, I say someone else that we will gladly rep their product. So I will rep it. Anyway, Clink.
I'm drinking. Oh, you have your sweater cup. I am drinking, I'm still in Texas, so I'm drinking it out of a beautiful orange cup from the Dallas Arboretum. It's beautiful and it feels good in your hand.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Dallas. Anywho, welcome to Truthful Chats. If you are new here, welcome. If you are an oldie but goodie, thank you so much for coming back. Truthful Chats is a weekly podcast show under the umbrella that is Create Generational Wellness. As you can see by this lovely background, I'm very proud that we created this. I think it's clear. Last week was an old background. It was very busy. We apologize for technical difficulties. We try to come a little more correct, okay? When you're working remotely, things happen, all right? Anyway, so Create Generational Wellness is the banner, umbrella, the brand, et cetera, et cetera. And so every month we have a theme. Truthful Chats is where we unpack that theme just a little bit. Honestly, I think we forgot that today was February. So technically...
Is it really?
It is. It's February 1st. It is a leap year, though. So technically, this is January 32nd, but really February 1st. So actually, we should actually be starting a new topic today, but we're not. We're still in Cultivate. We're still using January's word on February 1st. It's January 32nd. So we're still in Cultivate. This will be our last week. But we are in Cultivate Confrontation, which we said before is a very probably confrontational, conflicting, problematic title, but that's on purpose. Okay? So the real thing is confrontation, conflict, whatever you want to call it. It's honestly inevitable, okay? If you are a human being living, breathing, walking this earth, at any point in time, you're going to have a problem with somebody or somebody going to have a problem with you. That's just the way that it goes, okay? So the faster that we can learn, not even the faster, just the more that as conflicts occur or confrontations occur, you can learn sort of the art of confrontation or conflict. It's actually a really critical skill, right? To learn to help you successfully navigate the times when everything is not peaches, roses, lollipops, and rainbows for whatever length of time that it's not. Okay. So any type of conflict or confrontation, again, if you're a human living and breathing, some of us like it, some of us don't, but it's just a thing. Okay. You're going to be misunderstood. Someone's going to misunderstand you. Y'all going to miscommunicate. Some going to happen. You don't like that. They don't like what you're doing. It's all going to be just a little kerfuffle. Now, the level of kerfuffle, we're not always talking physical. It could be verbal. It could be your nonverbals. Okay, we talk about that a lot, right? So there's a kerfuffle. That being said, there's art to confrontation and conflict that we're going to talk about today. Okay, because if you learn the skill, it can really lead to growth, healing, transformation on interpersonal and interprofessional and all the things above. Okay, so as a human interacting with humans, when kerfuffles arise, you'll have skills to better be able to do this. So confrontation can be done, contrary to popular belief, respectfully, in a healthy way, where no one ends up in jail, prison, no one is injured, no bodily harm is done, no one's life is forever altered. If you've seen Beef on Netflix, I wasn't really a fan of the ending, but I think that is probably the pop culture norm of like where a confrontation can just go awry, and they took it too far. Like at some point, I was like, "Come on, man!" Like at some point, if you haven't seen it, it's a little spoiler, but one of the characters ends up peeing on the other person's bathroom floor. I think we've probably reached catastrophic levels if you are in someone's house peeing on their floor. Okay. And if you don't know, the inciting incident.
Out of spite.
Out of pure spite. Okay. They get people's families involved. It becomes a thing. And it's all based on what I think is a very human, everyday interaction of confrontation. A traffic accident is road rage.
Right. Really. Road rage.
So, you know, be careful with
and
it.
If you live in California, you know that's a real thing.
That happens often. In Texas, it's an open to carry state, so I think they have less problems because
they know they can really get the smoke down here.
It can turn into bodily harm very, very quickly. So yeah, confrontation gives you an opportunity, if you're ready for it, to address your issues, express your feelings, work towards a resolution, hopefully. So there's a study that they did at the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships. Okay, so they're talking about constructive and confrontational, conflictual, I don't know if that's a word, but it is now, situations can actually lead to improving your relationship, again, if you learn how to do them right. It can lead to greater levels of satisfaction, intimacy. We've all heard songs, movies, perhaps you've been in relationships. Sometimes people be like, the fighting is great because it leads to the other things, right? But unresolved conflicts, okay, things that build up on the build-up, can lead to pent-up emotions, resentment, the deterioration of your relationship completely because you just be like, I can't stand this fool being kid, partner, teacher, other student, co-worker, pick said person. And it can make confrontations hard, right? But again, they are essential for healthy relationships and healthy connections. You just gonna wind up in a situation sometimes that something needs to be resolved. I'm not saying at what levels, I'm not saying it needs to get violent or loud or whatever, but something is going to be resolved or need to be resolved at some point. So how do we do that? Pam, tell them all.
All right. So if you have to have confrontation, and you want to get to the point where you have the skills that can make it a healthy confrontation, right? Because it's going to happen, like Jessica said. So how do you do that? First of all, you have to identify the issue at hand. A lot of times people are having confrontations about stuff that's not the real issue. It's sort of like, you know how they say feelings are examples of a deeper emotion? Well, a lot of times confrontations are example of a deeper rooted thing that you're carrying around. And so you really have to get to the bottom of what is the issue at hand before you start trying to resolve it. All right. You have to express your thoughts.
Can I use an example? Well, it's a nerdy example, but in theater, we call that, in acting, any sort of acting, you will call that subtext, right? So like a writer will give you a particular set of words, right, to say, but the words that the person is saying, actually, we were talking about this. I have to go to work shortly to do we're working on August Wilson's monologues and scenes at Support Black Theater right now with a group of students, a whole bunch of students from LA. But what we were talking about was an August text. One of the students that we're working with was saying that in August language is cool because everything is on the surface. Like there's no subtext, right? So in August Wilson's pieces, usually what the characters are saying is exactly how they're feeling. There's no like underlying, like maybe they're really feeling angry, or maybe they're really feeling sad, or maybe everything's on the surface. As opposed to some other plays where the playwright will give you certain words, but based on the context of what happened before and what's happening in the scene, that might not actually be what the character's feeling. So you have to figure out how to like channel the emotions of what the character is actually feeling, saying said words, but that's not 100% what you mean based on the words that are coming out of your mouth. And in life, I forgot what the statistics are. We kind of do that on a regular basis. Like
we call it the iceberg effect. Yeah.
And confrontations where you might be saying, I'm okay, right? But your nonverbals, your tone, the sharpness to which you say that, you know what I mean? The volume to which you say that might not be communicating, I'm actually okay. Those are just the words you're using, right? So I think that happens in confrontation and conflict a lot of times, is that there's a lot of subtext underneath what's actually going on.
Yep. We kind of call that the iceberg effect too, is that there's, 10% of an iceberg is usually above water, but 90% of the iceberg is underwater. And so what you see is not the whole picture. So know that when you're trying to resolve a conflict or a confrontation, it may be presenting as this, but it's really a whole lot of other things. I might talk about that a little bit more in a minute, because as some of you might know, I'm here in Texas because my sister is in a nursing home. I'll just say right now, my sister's in a nursing home, and I can start to see that she's having some dementia, right? So there's a lot of things that she's saying to me right now, which could cause for a confrontation, but I understand that her mind is going
There's
through
other things happening.
There's other things happening underneath the surface.
Context.
So that I shouldn't react in the way that I would normally react if somebody said those things. But I realized the issue at hand for her is she has been, you want to talk about a type A personality, in control, run stuff all the time. That's been who she is all her whole life. So the fact that she cannot do that anymore because her mind won't help her and won't cooperate, that's the real issue. But the confrontations come out in weird ways. She just says things that wouldn't even be a thing in the past, but it's really, really big for her because she knows she's losing control. So anyway, just to say, not to that extreme, but a lot of times you're dealing with people who have emotions and thoughts and stuff that they can't really say yet, or they might not even know yet. Like they didn't even get deep enough within themselves, which is why we keep always talking about self-awareness and all that stuff, to be able to tell you exactly what it is they're feeling and why it feels threatening to them, or why they're offended by it, or why they're mad, or why they're trying to comfort you about what you said. You didn't think it carried that much weight or whatever, but you don't know what is beneath that person's iceberg. So if you're going to have a healthy confrontation, you have to think about that, and you have to think about how can you get to the root of the matter. All right. And then it also requires not just wanting to talk about it, to rehash what you did to me and how you made me feel and this, that, and the other. The point is to try to find a solution. All right. And to get to a place of mutual understanding so that it doesn't keep happening again. And so, and over and over. So if you can't, if the goal is not to find the right solution, but, some people just want to win. They don't care if it moves the needle forward, if it makes the relationship better or anything like that. They just want to say they won. Now, that's a whole underneath issue for them, but you are not going to resolve the conflict if all they want to do is win. They don't ever want to admit they did something wrong. They might need to change. It might require them to think about things in another way, look at it from a different perspective. All the things we talk about, you have to listen. You have to try and have empathy for the other person and be willing to understand that perspective. And if you're that person that wants to win all the time, you are not going to have no empathy for nobody ever, not never. Yeah. So if you're trying to have a healthy, productive confrontation, you have to have that mutual respect. You have to have empathy. And the goal must be to resolve the conflict, not for you to win. Okay. Sometimes that means you have to use I statements to express your feelings. You can't express nobody else's feelings. You know, I had to tell I know I did all that, the things, but
nonverbals, you're trying to tell you about the nonverbals. The nonverbals, you could be emotionally mature, you could be healthy, you could be like, I think I know what's wrong. Like, you can have all the awareness, but them nonverbals be really
pop up.
That's where the confrontation arises. And I think we've seen that culturally too. Like, if y'all, I don't do it, but y'all that be like watching The Real Housewives, Loving Hip Hop, them reality shows, it's a lot of emotional immaturity, period. But them nonverbals, that's what be escalating, the drinks being thrown in the face, and then people jumping across the table or security coming. I'm trying to tell you. But go ahead. Sorry.
I almost just had a conflict before I left the nursing home today because, you know, my sister needed some assistance. And the person that was supposed to be assisting her nonverbals said, I don't feel like doing this. And, you know, we almost had a big confrontation because I could see you don't want this job. You don't like it. You hate it. And I get it. It's healthcare. It's ugly. It's nasty. It's dirty.
Sorry. Shout out to all the healthcare workers.
Yes, indeed. God bless y'all. But the ones that you should go to Whataburger and sell milkshakes and French fries and burgers because you probably could get the same amount of money and you don't have a spirit that wants to help people. Anyway, I digress. That's under my iceberg. But anyway, interesting facts.
It helps if healthcare workers have a good heart for their job. And that's anybody, that you're passionate about what you're doing. And if you're not, it may be time to transition on to something else.
Yeah, it's like night and day when you get a person who cares. Anyway, interesting fact, certain personality traits such as empathy, emotional intelligence, assertiveness, adaptability, those contribute to successful conversations and confrontations. So if you're that person that doesn't have empathy, you don't have any emotional intelligence, you just say whatever you want to say when you think you should say it because that's how you feel and okay. Or if you're that person that I just tell the truth all the time, 100%. I'm going to keep it real and I don't care who don't like it and if you have all that going on. And if you can't adjust, if you can't say, okay, perhaps, not 100%, but perhaps I was wrong. Empathy enables you to help understand other people's perspective. Emotional intelligence helps you to manage your emotions and understand the emotional cues of others. Like that girl today did not understand my emotions. I have been trying to get some help from my sister for the last 5 hours. And she was the person on the shift for 5 hours. Every time I ask her something, I'm gonna be back. And she never came back. So by the time she finally did get in there, my emotions were at a point where, you know, y'all could have been seeing me on the news. And she had no clue about my emotional state at that time, nor did she care. And yeah, it could have been ugly, but thank God we're evolving and changing. Assertiveness, you need it to express yourself effectively if you're trying to have a meaningful conversation about a conflict. But if you're assertive and all you, again, want to do is win, 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 like DJ Khaled, that assertiveness is not going. Yep, that assertiveness is not going to be helpful in getting you to the point of resolving the conflict. And then adaptability allows you to be flexible in finding solutions. It may not go like you want it to go. There may be a better answer. There may be a better resolution if you can figure out a way to talk about it in a manner that makes sense. But if you just are stuck in your ways, I don't need to change. I've been this way all my life. It's worked for me. Boo, probably not. Probably not. 100% hasn't been working for you. You just can't see that it's not been working for you, right? Certain skill
and also,
sets.
Can we say on the other side of the spectrum, I just don't want to come for the people that are boisterous in their personality and loud in their personality. It could be the opposite for people who are, you know, also quiet, right? Or kind of they're passive, or they kind of let things just wash over them. Like that we were talking about, the buildup is real. I'm a person who internalizes, right? Or I can get very quiet. Y'all see me in rare glimpses here when I like actually be like in a different form. I am a Gemini, so do what you will with that. But most of the time, I am the let water roll off person for the most part, because you're just not going to disturb my peace. But every now and then, you know what I'm saying, I gotta let the things off before I explode. So, and again, try to do it respectfully, in a healthy manner. But I just don't want to make it seem like all the people with the pop-off personalities. I'm like, it could go whatever your personality is fluid in this context, but the ability to be able to effectively communicate when something is bothering you well with the people that you interact with, no matter where your personality falls, is important. We'll say that.
Yeah, and the loud people can be very emotionally intelligent. What they say makes sense. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't mean just because you're loud or just because you assert yourself in certain situations or whatever. I just want you to understand what you're saying, where it's coming from within you, and why you're saying it that way, and give the other person that same respect. It's a skill set, and sometimes you have to learn it. You don't know how to do it. So that's one of the reasons we're here. We're trying to help you. You have to practice your active listening. We talk about that a lot. That means when somebody is talking to you, fully concentrate on what they're saying. Fully concentrate on, God bless you, Jess. Fully concentrate on what they're saying. Try to respond to what they said, not to the thing that you hear in your head that you think they said, or again, going back to that winning, trying to get something together so that when they say this, I'm going to say this. And when they say that, and then I'm going to shut it down. That's going to be the end. That's not.
Uh-oh.
Did y'all hear that? A lamp fell over.
We did.
But we're going to keep going.
Production thanks.
Yes. So
also, I want to say with that too, we haven't talked about this really. I'm buying you time if you want to get that lamp. I could pull you back in, but it's up to you. So while she's doing that, sorry, we thought we had fixed all the technical things, but you know, things happen in a moment. With what she was just articulating, so we haven't talked about this, but like filters, right? Like I think sometimes some of us come to certain conversations, especially if they're hard, especially if our emotions are already going, especially if we're super like revved up, especially like if you're in a confrontation or a conflict with somebody, you are going to be revved up. Remember we talked about this in the previous episodes, but regulating your nervous system, making sure you're calm when you come to these conversations. And it's not always going to work. Like honestly, sometimes you're going to be gassed up. You're going to be juiced up. Okay. But that also, when we've talked about in previous episodes about fight or flight, right? If you're in a fight or flight state, there's a particular filter that the information is coming to you in. So if you're already the type of person that wants to win, right, in arguments, but then additionally, you're gassed up, right? Your emotions are super high, and you're in a fight or flight mode. It's kind of like, I hate to use Inception as like a thing, but like, or Westworld, right? Your reality might not be what's actually happening. It's just the way that your brain is filtering and coloring things based on what your emotions are in the moment. And I don't know that we ever had like the super in-depth discussion about that, but based on the pieces of things that we have talked about, again, when your emotions are super high, maybe you have or have not had the time to process. But even if you have, if you're coming in an emotionally mature state, you got your talking points and all that, you can still find yourself in a rev up state. So I think that's why sometimes like taking deep breaths are important in those states, because you're able, that like interrupts the filter, right? To be like, okay, just because I might be misreading these verbal cues or nonverbal cues, or you know what I mean, that filter is on your brain to be like, now I'm really about to take it there. So I think just the space, having the space and taking the time to be like, okay, maybe what I'm perceiving is not the nature of my reality. So let me like reprocess in a sense. And then if you still feeling that, then, figure out with your I statements, I feel like the way you move in your head right now makes it seem like you're not actively listening to me, or you know what I mean? Whatever
the way you're scrolling on your phone while I'm talking to you makes me feel like you're not you're not listening to me. You don't care about what I have to say. I broke the lamp, so it's not going to happen.
It's broken.
Now. I believe that the lamp is broken. So
did it slide off the table or something?
It's I had it on something. It fell over, and so now it won't come back on. So don't worry about it. All right.
Sorry, Uncle.
Yeah, he'll take care of it. So
anyway,
yep. Jessica was really clear about what she was saying about the effective communication, your clear expression, your attentive listening. Nothing is ruder than you pouring out your heart to somebody and they scrolling down on it. They looking down at their phone or rolling their eyes, or like you say something and they come back and start talking about something else. Like, did you not just hear what I just said is going on for me right in this moment? Be empathetic, try to listen, try to pay attention, and try to show and respond in a way that shows that you do care. You need problem solving skills. Listen, I don't know if we talked about this. I said I was going to talk about it last week, but with all the glitches, I might not have been able to do it. But I have a friend that works at a university, and she said the biggest problem the kids coming into college have right now is that they don't have any critical thinking skills. They don't know how to solve a problem.
I think you did say it with Ms. Jody.
Yeah. If a problem comes up, they're like, I don't know what to do. I can't figure out how to get across campus, and my class is, on this side, and I got to get to the other side. Like, get a bike, get away. I mean, like the way to solve the problem doesn't come up for them. And this is a result of our education system, a result of helicopter parents, of which I am one, that's always done everything for your kids. So it's hard for them to figure out how to do it themselves. I apologize, but you have overcome. And then the other thing is,
I do all right.
Yeah, you gotta regulate your emotions. You have to be sure that in the midst of this confrontation, you got a valve, you got a button, you got a pressure thing, you got something that you say to yourself that does not let you go crazy. Like,
or
today,
if the button gets pushed, sometimes you just gotta walk away. But
yeah,
I told
you gotta walk away.
Putting respect on the walk away. Can we table this and come back to it? Because it happens. But go ahead. You were saying today.
That confrontation this morning, my emotional regulator said, if you go off on this girl and you're not here, she might take it out on your sister. So you need to regulate your emotions about how angry you are and figure out another way to handle this. But in the moment, that was hard. It's just, I've had a lot of practice over these 68 years. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, research from the Journal of Counseling and Psychology again says that individuals who engage in constructive confrontations, if you can figure out a way to have your confrontations and your conflicts be constructive, you're going to have greater self-esteem. It's going to improve your emotional well-being. It's going to help you solve problems better, and you deeply understand yourself and others. That's crucial in all your relationships, in your family, like in your workplace, and wherever you go. If you don't understand yourself and you don't know how to solve a problem, your life is going to be a reality show every day, all day, every day, all day. And who wants that? Maybe some of y'all, but not me.
Unregulated emotions. So we talked a lot about why confrontation is good, right? Again, it allows you to get that stuff off your chest in a healthy way, so you're not carrying it around. You actively get to listen and empathize. You get to express yourself using I statements. It can lead to, greater depths of intimacy. for all various types of relationships. But if it's so good, then why do people avoid it so much? And I think we know some of these, right? We just gonna go down the little list. Fear of conflict or confrontation, right? It just don't feel good all the time. You know what I mean? And life is full of things that we do that don't feel good. But the fear of like, I don't want to get my cortisol up. I don't want my chest to be tight. I don't want to have to shake this out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have all that build up because it doesn't feel good. And you don't want to hurt other people's feelings. You know what I mean? There's a whole lot of like things that go around with fear of conflict or confrontation. But go ahead.
And particularly, Jess, if you grew up in a household where your parents fought. Like,
it was
if you
full confrontation all the time.
If it was full confrontation all the time, you have some trauma around that you just really don't want to go there. And that's something you have to deal with, to like let go of that part of your life and do the work to be able to have conflict that doesn't put you back in that space of being a scared 7-year-old child in the closet hoping your mommy and daddy stop fighting. You know what I mean? And that's real for a lot of people. And there's no judgment in that. But if you know that that's been part of your reality, then you might have to do some extra work to get to the point where you learn how to have a healthy confrontation.
Yeah, because it could be a emotional trigger for you, right? Some people just don't like yelling, period. Like they didn't grow up like that. So that's very triggering. Other people, all y'all did was yell. You know what I mean? There was a lot of y'all in the house, whatever, or like it's not necessarily confrontational. Sometimes it is, but sometimes y'all like, we just laugh loud. We just talk loud. But you just got to know yourself, right? And your people.
And then you marry somebody that was an only child and
come from a completely different family cultural context than you. So that can be.
You start yelling and that makes them afraid. Yeah.
Yeah. Avoidance. You just don't want to do it. You just gonna avoid it altogether, which seems like a good idea in the moment until the buildup starts, and then you start getting resentful, and then all your interactions are colored by said thing that keeps getting on. It could be the same thing getting on your nerve. It could be multiple things getting on your nerve, but it just keeps building. Lack of confidence in communication skills. That could be in your communication skills or the other person's communication skills, which could be legitimate. Okay, you could be emotionally mature, but you know when you start talking to so-and-so, they're going to change the subject. They're going to move out the hot seat. They're going to be talking about, well, you did, while you just trying to come for me. And it's not really about coming for per se. We just try to have a conversation. But everybody's not prepared for that. Okay. Fear of rejection. If you bring up said things, you try to be a better person. You're coming in with the best of intentions. But that person might not want to fool with you after that. For a short period of time, a long period of time, or ever. So you are kind of putting that relationship on the coals, right? A little bit to see if it can test and stand up under a confrontation or conflict. And some people don't want to do that for said whatever reasons. And that could be in any relational format, right? You really want to be your kid's best friend if you know, depending on what your philosophy of parenting is. But if you bring that up, they might not, you know what I mean? Particularly in the teenage years, things get a little rough, right? Your parents, the matriarchs and patriarchs of your family, like, you know, those things could be hard, right? Fear of escalation, okay? We've talked about this, bodily harm, verbal harm, things being said that can't be unsaid. You know, you like, I'm never going to fool with that person ever again, right? So escalation that can lead to rejection. That could also lead to avoidance. Again, we talked about this, fear of hurting other people or fear of you getting hurt, right? Because that person can say something off the cuff. If you're coming from an emotionally mature place, that person in defense of themselves, so they think, right, can say something off the cuff that can really damage you, right? And change the way you look at them, right? So it's a risk. You're putting everybody's feelings on the line, and said thing can go your way or it might not. And you got to figure. And again, the point is not really to win, but everybody don't have that revelation. So there's that. Fear of being perceived negatively. I think we particularly struggle with this in our community. Black men and Black women. Black women a little bit more. Black men, so it depends. Usually Black men are perceived as, in some circles, right, hyper violent, we all know where that comes from, right? These are white supremacist lens of looking at Black people. Black women, you know, you're not trying to be too aggressive, too loud, too whatever, right?
Bossy, you know everything.
Right. That's because your womanhood is being compared to white womanhood, which they get to be demure and soft or aggressive and whatever. You know what I mean? Like they have a lot of full range. But for Black people and people of color, you know what I mean? These very regular, very human emotions can put you in a particular light and space. So racist premises aside, you just don't want to look, you don't want to look bad. Okay. So if you are confrontational by nature, you could be perceived as doing too much, right? Aggressive, unreasonable for even bringing up a conflict, right? So those are things that are triggering and reasons to avoid it. Fear of being vulnerable. I just think this goes across the board, whether you're talking confrontation, conflict or not. Being vulnerable with yourself is hard for some people, but also being vulnerable with other people, right? So it requires you to express your emotions, your needs, the soft parts of yourself that everybody might not be able to receive, or maybe you're gonna find out they don't really care about you like that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a risk involved. Like they'd be like, oh, okay, or they just don't want to deal with vulnerability. They're like, I don't deal with my own vulnerability, so I'm really not trying to deal with yours, and I don't really know what to do with that, right? You gotta know who you're dealing with. And it's the fear of being emotionally exposed, right? Appearing weak, opening yourself up to somebody who like may or may not be worth that time, that energy, right? And you giving yourself, right? And that person doing all that with you. You might be like, whoa, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, or you just might not be prepared for that. You know, parents with kids, your kids might be telling you some stuff where you like, wait a minute, no. I'm not prepared to deal with it, or your parents or whoever, you know what I mean? Where people start telling you their life story or things that they've been through or things they need advice on. So just making sure that you're prepared, but that can also stop people, right? Then you have cultural and gender norms, which you were talking about in terms of culturally, you don't want to be seen in a particular way, or gender-wise, women don't act this way, or men don't act this way, or some of y'all are non-binary, so I get it. I understand why you would be like, I don't want to have to deal with any of that. So societal norms and expectations around conflict resolution, communication, can impact your willingness to actually be confrontational. So if you have certain cultural or gender norms, or gender norms that are based on cultural expectations, like I think of, you know, Chinese culture or Indian culture, right? Like Indian culture, what your mama say usually goes. You know what I'm saying? It's like in that part of the world, like mothers hold a whole lot of weight. So if you bucking up against that, that's a problem. Or in more patriarchal societies, right? If women, well, all societies are probably patriarchal, that a woman asserting herself like looks a particular way, right? Or the way in which
especially a Black woman,
right? Or the way in which a man expresses his confrontation, which you remember, like, oh, Kanye used to talk about this all the time about like he was raised by a woman, so sometimes the way his mannerisms or the way he would say things or phrase things was influenced by a Black woman. People perceive that in a particular way about his masculinity. I think at some point people were questioning his sexuality, but like those kind of things, right? Sometimes in certain societies, like I know this in Asian is very broad. I'm so sorry. I wish I could think. Maybe in Chinese culture, right? Sometimes the suicide rates are higher there because they don't like express emotion, and like that's just not a thing that they do culturally. So that really gives you a place and space for things to build up. Because confrontation is just not culturally what they do. They just be like, okay, moving on to the next. Not to say they don't feel those things, but you know, in some cultures, there's not an outlet to, or they're not taught like this is how this can be done, right? So yeah, it discourages your ability, your want, your desire to confront, even if you need to confront, right? And you want to prioritize harmony over addressing the conflicts directly. And again, like we said, that tends to build up over time. You can't not address it. And so these fears actually perpetuate and resolve conflicts, which can have huge problems, huge effects on your health, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being. Because usually if your mental and emotional well-being are affected, somewhere your physical health is being impacted, right? That stuff still shows up.
Absolutely.
So got to figure out how to move past all these fears. Not saying they're not valid, not saying they don't make sense, not saying you're not right, okay? Like, you know the people you're dealing with more than we know the people you're dealing with. We talking about the people in our world, but y'all know who y'all dealing with. So working on ways to help improve your communication skills really can address a lot of these fears, like the way we said, the I statements, the attentive listening, the being empathetic, even starting the conversation with, this is going to be really hard for us because culturally we don't do this, or gender-wise, I know women don't usually do this, or men don't usually do this, but so you might have to just jump off the cliff, right? You just might have to be brave and start with the uncomfortableness of the situation.
Having the
right?
conversation, period. Yeah.
Yeah, like we were talking again in the August Wilson monologue competition, right? About what the kids who are going to be auditioning and this week is like, we tell people, if you're in an audition and you're nervous, maybe you just need to say that. So then it's out in the air and you're not dealing with it inside of your person. You still might be nervous, but now it's like, okay, let me figure out how to use this, right? So I would say auditioning to have a confrontation is probably the same way, right? And it gives you a minute to like test the waters to see if the person is even in the space to even want to deal with this, or if you should table it and come back to it another time. So working on these like couple common things, aside from the things we already talked about. Focus on your common goals, right? Encourage each other directly. If you're mediating for people too, I guess this works, because some of y'all already know, I hear y'all being like, this ain't never gonna work unless I have a third person in the room or two people in the room. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you need somebody to, maybe it's so much bad blood between you that no matter what the person says, you're always going to filter it crazy, right? Whereas if you bring a person, two people in who can translate, right, for you, that works. So encouraging both parties to identify and acknowledge their shared objective, which is not to win, but to hear each other out, right? And again, if y'all two get heated when you talk, that other person can be like, whoa, 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 let's pause, right? Or here's a talking stick or a talking rock, right? If that person doesn't have that, you can't just jump out of turn. And just
and for those of you that don't
people,
know, talking stick or talking rock means, you always have those people that interrupt all the time. Like you say something, it triggers
they
them.
They got to get their point across,
and they got to get their point across right then. So having a talking stick or a talking rock means the person holding the stick or the rock talks, and the other person cannot talk until they
actively listen.
They have to actively listen, which is hard, because if you got that thing going on in your mind, like, oh no, I want to say this, I want to say this, I want to say this, you actually stop listening to the other person because you're planning your comeback. So the talking stick and the talking rock lets you know you're going to have a turn. It's just going to come in a few minutes. So you can hopefully listen better. Okay, go ahead.
And hopefully you'll be able to actively listen to what the person is saying, again, not addressing your points. So just reminding yourself, the other person, the mediators can remind you, right? Everyone has a common goal. Focus, the shift from your grievances with the person, right? Your issues, your beef, to we're trying to find a collective solution, right? So a way to do that is brainstorming. People are usually familiar with this in work settings. We do it creatively too in work settings. But it helps you to generate multiple potential solutions. We usually do for like risk assessment or whatever, all y'all corporate things. Or like, hey, we got a bunch of ideas about how we think the story should go. Like, let's throw them all out there and see which ones we like as a consensus. So it encourages creativity, open-mindedness, explores various types of ways to resolve a conflict. Again, we're back to active listening in that, right? Listening for needs, interest. So you're trying to engage each party in expressing your underlying needs and interests, right? Actively listening to these needs that people have, right, can really help uncover common ground and pave the way for like mutually beneficial solutions, right? Mutually beneficial solutions. I'm gonna say it one more time for people back. Mutually, that means for both people. Beneficial, that means good for everybody. Solutions, right? Everybody feels heard, said, their needs were addressed. They said what they had to say. And now the solution is for you both to walk away from the situation feeling like you got what you needed and what you wanted. And it wasn't to win. It was to understand each other's perspective, point of view, and maybe you get an apology. Maybe you got to do the apologizing, but like we can move forward from here without all the beef. Okay. Encourage perspective taking. That's a good exercise too, right? Prompt each other to consider the other person's perspective, right? This helps to foster empathy, understanding, makes it easier to find compromises and solutions that accommodate both viewpoints, right? Because I think a lot of times we just get stuck in our own head about what we think is right or the right way to do things or whatever, and you never even consider, and that's anything, work, conflict, whatever the thing is. You just don't even think you're the main character in your own story, okay? So you always right. But there may be other perspectives, other things. So establish your clear objectives in terms of your confrontation, right? Define your specific, actionable objectives that you both can agree to, right? If the thing is, we're not going to resolve this thing for 15 years ago, but I want to be able to at least call you on the phone and not be an issue. If that's the goal, we just want to be able to have solid, regular, solid, regular, maybe hit refresh and come back. Solid, regular conversations, right? With no friction. That's the goal of the confrontation meeting, right? Is we want to be able to talk to each other on the phone after this. That's the goal. Clear objective. We don't have to keep rehashing or whatever, you know what I mean? We just need a clear objective, okay? And clear objectives actually provide a roadmap for the discussion, right? And create a sense of direction for it, making it easier to move from confrontation to resolution. So if that's the goal, you may have to revisit the past to be like, so why do we find it so difficult to communicate with each other, right? Why is it so hard for us to do? You may have to spend a little time in the past, but don't stay there, right? Because the goal is we want to be able to have conversations with each other after this, like 15, 20-minute conversations without this. So it just gives you, it's like having a map. It's like Waze. You know the direction you're going. Waze is going to take you the best way to get there, okay? Explore alternative solutions. Encourage consideration of various solutions and alternatives, right? Y'all might have come up with something really cool together. Think of something else. Be like, okay, these seem like cool solutions. This is a cool thing. But maybe there's something else you haven't thought of, right? If you talk about people who are divorced or people who are co-parenting, right? Y'all might have come up with a couple solutions for things and then be like, well, let's throw something else out there, right? Maybe we need to hire an outside person to come pick up the kid and drop it off at each one of our houses because maybe that's just too much beef. You know what I mean? At that particular time. So just be open to, like, in that brainstorm, getting as creative as you possibly can, right? And then think of consensus. Like we said, sometimes you gotta bring some other people into the conversation that are able to have a different perspective from you, and might have other kind of solutions, alternatives, things you haven't thought about. And yeah, you might be needing to bring in some other minds to work to a consensus about what you feel is most viable of a solution. And that encourages open dialogue, willingness to adapt in order to find a solution that's acceptable for all the parties, man. Sometimes you just got to get other kinds of people involved because y'all are in that stuck in the mud cycle of thinking. And yeah, it could just hinder progress, right? So sometimes having some other minds in the room help you move forward to your objective set goal. Right.
Yep. So let's talk about brainstorming a little bit really quickly. And like we said, we know most of the time you use that at work. That's when you hear about, let's brainstorm how we can be more effective and get more sales or whatever it is that you do at your job. But I don't think a lot of times people think about using brainstorm in their personal life as well. So it's just the same principle, but you're doing it for those things that are going on personally for you. Like, so, let's say your family, every family reunion, something happens where Auntie Mabel be feeling like she be cooking all the time. Nobody else helps. And this, that, and the other. 3 aunties run the whole family reunion. They feel like everybody else has a good time and they don't get to go, and this, that, and the other. So get everybody together, allow everybody to freely suggest potential solutions without criticism or judgment. And that's kind of a traditional way to brainstorm. You come up with another idea. We did that one year, and we decided we were going on a cruise for the family reunion. So nobody cooked, nobody did anything. Yeah, that's when we went with Jason. It
I don't remember that.
It was.
Oh, was that what that was?
Yeah, that was it wasn't my side of the family. It was your dad's side of the family that decided that's what they were going to do. But then some of my family came along too. So it was just a way for the families to get together without anybody feeling like put upon. And so, you know, whatever you guys decide at the next family reunion meeting, let's, you know, address that issue. These people always feel like they have to do all the work and nobody else participates. How can we change that and let the solutions come up? Some people are going to talk the whole time and not let anybody else get a word in edgewise.
Or they're just long-winded. Which
happens. And so then there's another kind of brainstorming called round robin, where, again, it's kind of like the talking rock stick thing. You got 2 minutes. What you got to say, the next person has 2 minutes. The next person has 2 minutes. Somebody keeps time. Somebody keeps it moving. You can go around as many times as you want to, but that lets you ensure that everybody's going to be heard, including the kids. This is a really good way to teach your kids how to start solving problems, brainstorming, dealing with conflict and stuff earlier. Their thing may be set, they may say, the only thing we should have to eat is ice cream and spaghetti. And so, okay, there's a lot of people that might not want ice cream and spaghetti, but maybe part of the incorporation can be this day is ice cream and spaghetti day, or you know what I mean? And that makes the kids feel validated, feel heard, like they contributed. And so that will teach them to do that as they get older. They feel like they have a voice and they can be heard. And, you know, they'll carry that with them throughout the rest of their life. Sometimes you need a visual representation of ideas. So you might want to draw on the board the problem in the middle, and then just draw lines and offshoots of what are possible solutions or whatever for the people that are visual. Just thinking of ways that you can resolve a conflict, resolve a confrontation using different methods. You can methods, yes. You can also have people put things in a hat. Like maybe you got that family that nobody wants to say anything. So have everybody put their ideas in a hat and then somebody read them out. And
they can remain anonymous, right?
Please let it remain anonymous. That's another good way to kind of have conflicts and solve problems. You could do that even if you have a small family. It's just the 3 or 4 of you. Most of the time, you're gonna know who said what anyway, but they will probably feel a little bit safer. And then there's something called reverse brainstorming, where you you brainstorm about what could go wrong. Okay, we have this idea. We think this is going to work, but let's reverse out and say, well, what if this happens? What is the solution that we can have? What if this happens? What if it's another solution that we can have? So you reverse engineer. These are all really good skills to learn. And when you do them, and when you do them in a safe environment, it helps the people be able to go through their life and navigate the same way. You could do a good old role play. You could encourage people. Okay, now you be your sister and you be your brother, and you tell us how you think your sister is feeling, or you tell us how you think your brother is feeling. And so that way,
can I add something to that?
Things happen. Yes, please.
So I remember they did this because it's usually like a therapist tactic, but for all the 90s babies, they did. So when you do this, you have to just don't use role play as an opportunity to be petty, okay? One of my favorite episodes of Moesha, if y'all don't remember, Moesha was a sitcom in the 90s starring the songstress that is Brandy Rihanna Norwood. And you remember Miles was having a hard time that season. Miles was smoking weed. He was feeling neglected. He was being rude. They went into the role play and everybody was role playing in the family, but they were being rude. Like they were making fun of Dee. They were making fun of their dad. They were doing like caricatures of the person, right? Eventually, Miles ended up saying how he felt. He ended up saying like something like Moesha didn't care about him or whatever as Moesha. And she was like, I don't feel like that. You know what I mean? But just saying all that to say, if you're going to role play, don't use it as petty charades. That's all I can say.
I love that.
Because if you use it as, it just came to me, if you use it as petty charades, okay, verbals, non-verbals, this is not charades, okay? This is you trying to get
You're not making fun of the person. You are really trying to understand how they feel.
Empathetically how they're feeling, okay? So maybe don't, hit with the non-verbal hand on it. Do you know what I mean? Don't try to imitate their voice. Like, don't be petty. That's all I'm trying to say. Just don't be petty. But role play is positive. And using a combination of these things. Because like my mom always says, everybody learns differently or everybody connects to different things. So if you only have one way for people to express themselves, or you're not gonna get the introvert most of the time to speak in a group setting, but you still want to hear from them. So maybe have something for the extroverts, maybe have something for the introverts, maybe have something for the auditory learners, the visual learners, the kinesthetic learners. Like, make sure everybody is involved in conflict and confrontation resolution in a way that makes them feel comfortable, heard, seen, etc. But I digress. Continue. I just saw Miles doing that.
No. That was it. That was the last one, the role play. And I like that you said that. So now petty charades will go into the lexicon.
Petty charades
of create generational wellness. So if you hear us say, don't be playing petty charades, you should know what that means. All right.
So I think this has been a good time, man. We covered a lot of ground. We talked about a lot of things. Hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully you're like, okay, let me try some of these things. And again, it doesn't have to be heinous and egregious things. Okay, what we talking about? If you're trying to plan a game night, if you're trying to figure out how to do this work project, if you trying to get your kids to do their bedtime routine, okay, pack your lunch, put your stuff in your bag, do your chores, okay. If you're trying to get the dog to stop peeing on the carpet, whatever the said thing is, right? Whatever your conflicts are, we've given you. These are usually meant for human interactions, but you see what I mean, okay? The animals need love too. So the art of confrontation is normal, okay? You're gonna conflict. You're gonna have confrontations with every living being, really, okay, on the planet. And being able to healthily express yourself, right? Learn the art of being critically confrontational, right? Or using a lot of critical thinking. Once you establish you might have to be confrontational. It helps you have healthy relationships. Work on your personal development, right? Like, this is not a thing that you're probably going to get. It's nothing you're going to get overnight. But this, you definitely got to practice, okay? We said that about a few things, but this is for sure one of the things you got to practice consistently for all the reasons we said, right? The active listening,
yes, indeed.
The use of I statements, not you did that, regulating your emotions, the fight or flight things, when you jump too hot or they jump too hot and now you want to jump hot, the walk away, all those things, right? So no matter what you figure out, right? If you're brainstorming, mind mapping, you got a mediator, you don't have a mediator, you are very clear about, like, we are having this conversation because I don't want you to keep leaving your clothes on the floor. How can we figure this out? Having very clear directives as you start the conversation. You figure it out, okay? How to do it, how to, in having confrontation, still have better connections. You don't want to hate everybody after this, right? And a process that leads to positive change in everybody's lives. It don't work if you just get your emotional rocks off and then everybody hates you. That's not, you didn't do it well. By the end, everybody should feel better. Okay. And you might not have resolved everything. That's what we said. Pick one directive. We having this conversation right now about this. But maybe Wednesdays is the day we do confrontational conversations. So we're going to deal with this Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we'll deal with the other thing. Okay. Maybe make a list, okay, of the things we need to be talking about. But we're not going to talk about them all in one thing, because that's not going to happen. Remember, the art of healthy confrontation is not about winning or losing. It's not about winning or losing. It's not about winning or losing. You are trying to understand. You're trying to understand the person. The other person is trying to understand you, or said persons. Y'all are trying to understand each other, because where there's understanding, there's empathy, there's growth, and there's more fulfilling relationships on the other side of that. Okay. But if you're so busy assess your trauma, right? Because maybe you came from a family where you never felt like you were heard or seen or whatever. Everybody that's adults is kids fighting some type of trauma on the inside, okay? And they just might be taking it out on you. But you have to be emotionally mature to be like, this ain't even really about me, and it really doesn't have anything to do with what we're actually talking about in terms of confrontation. So let's table that. Or if you're not in a place to have this conversation right now, that's cool. Let's table this and come back to another time. We respect the walkaway here. Developing the necessary traits and skills, understanding the benefits of confrontation, overcoming the common barriers that people often have. We all have them. That's why I said, let's not be like, I'm a confrontation expert. You have your moments when you're going to jump off the deep end. Like, I'm just going to go off. And you just emotionally kill everybody with emotional bullets. It happens, okay? It doesn't mean we can't regress. I mean, we can't repent, okay? Be like, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I lost it the last time. There was a lot going on, okay? Pam was going to pop off at the nurse today. It really didn't have nothing to do with the nurse. It's just an overall arching frustration, right? She's been doing this caregiving for a long time now. Some people are on the same program. Other people are not. You just got to be malleable. Anyway, all of that information helps you as an individual better approach confrontation with confidence and compassion. Okay, you have the communication skills. You are a kind person. Don't try to use confrontation to be a jerk. Okay, actually, let's work on being a better person, even in our confrontations and our conflicts, and pave the way for healing, transformation, and our favorite thing around here, creating generational wellness, okay? Because this ain't just for you to learn the skills. It's for you to pass the skills on to said generations, older and younger co-workers, so they can start doing this stuff in their family, wherever you worship, them people, okay? Don't just think we in the house of whoever, so we all got it together. No. Schools, all sectors, okay? Government, they could really use a lot of confrontation resolution up in there, okay? So anyway, we help someone today with all the things. Thank you so much for your time. We did better. We did better with
including
the tech,
ourselves.
Okay, we did better. I know. It's for us first, and then for you, but it's really for us as well. So yeah, man, we hope you come back next week, but you're not gonna know what we're talking about. We will actually be starting a new topic. I told you, it's January 32nd, and it's a leap year. Anyway, so this was our last Cultivate. Make sure you are subscribed on the YouTube channel. Follow us on IG, Facebook, fan base. We are at Create Generational Wellness on all the platforms. And then every Thursday around 7 p.m. PST. Sometimes we've been late. Sometimes it's the glitches in the technology. I don't know. But we're always here. By Thursday, I think maybe the latest we did it was like Saturday one time because things was just haywire. And sometimes you got to walk away. We respect the walk away around here. Anyway, we hope you come back and that you join us on all of the things. So with that, we will bid you adieu. We will see you next week. And it's Black History Month. It's the most.
Oh yeah, we love this. Okay. All right, we're about to go for it.
All right, y'all.